this gothic underground city. We all sin. If I bring a couple rounds with me, then we all win.
Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to another episode of Into the Bad Zones. This is our series of Necromunda Outlanders campaign battle reports, and this is battle report number 6. It is a mining expedition fight that is fought between Mercator Umbrus as well as the Gung-Ho Guns. Shade is bringing her Clanless Outcast gang while I'm bringing my House Escher Outcasts, and the two of us will be throwing it down into the bad zones to mining up resources in order to build our settlements for our campaign's development phase. So for those of you guys who are tuning in for the very first time, first of all, welcome to my channel, and secondly, in case you're wondering what's going on, we are doing a Necromunda Outlanders campaign, and we are in the very last week of our development phase. The development phase lasts about 3 weeks. All 4 of our gangs have been fighting each other to gather resources in order to build up their settlements. After this, we'll go into downtime, and then from downtime, we'll go to the expansion phase, where we start attacking each other's settlements. So with that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, we'll show you guys photos of both gangs as well as their rosters. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this battle report, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
So first of all, in our Outlanders scenario, this is taking place in development phase, it is a mining expedition, and the environment that we'll be playing in is a dome jungle. So if you're wondering, Commander Cheapskate, why is there a bunch of trees in this photo? That's why. In a dome jungle, you must include at least 6 pieces of carnivorous plants terrain. Each of the carnivorous plants get +1 to their strength for their attacks, and their attack range is increased by a further 3 inches. Also, all carnivorous plants also heal 1 damage during the end phase, and of course, you have -1 hit penalties for all ranged attack made by fighters who happen to be inside of the dome as well. So, with that being said, what ends up happening for this scenario, we have 4 pieces of prospecting sites that are at least 4 inches long, at least 8 inches away from the tabletop, for the battlefield edge located on the battlefield. For the crews on this one, both gangs get up to 10 fighters of their choice for the scenario, and of course we have standard deployment rules. Now for gang tactics, opponents earn 1 gang tactic for every 100 point difference between gang ratings. In this situation, Shade will have 4 gang tactics. Her tactics are honorless victory, no masters, weird occurrence, as well as lucky score. Now to end the battle ends when all sites have been successfully prospected, or if only 1 gang has fighters remaining on the battlefield. Victory conditions include gangs who prospect the most sites is the winner. If both gangs mine equal amounts, it ends up in a draw. Now for the rewards on this one, each mining site is worth plus 2d6 times 10 credits. Also, each fighter gains 1 point of experience for participating, as well as 1 point additional experience for each fighter who mines out a prospecting site. Now for reputation, if either gang bottles out, they lose 1 point of reputation, and for our Outlander campaign rewards, you earn plus 2d6 times 2 salvage from each prospecting site. So now that we're done talking about the scenario rules, let's go and talk about battle plans and deployments. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, Shade and I are playing on a 4x4 table. Shade is deployed on the near side of the table, while I'm deployed on the far side of the table. Now for the battle plan on this one's more of an objectives based battle, so because of that, we're fighting over prospecting sites that are scattered throughout the entirety of the table. As you can see, we actually have 1 prospecting site right in the middle of the Alexander department store, which is in the middle of Shade's deployment area, so we have that one there. We also have another prospecting site in the middle of the table, right between the walkway as well as the ruins. At the same time, we have another one on the very top level of the upper left-hand corner walkway, and there's another one in the upper right-hand corner on the roof of the top of the tower, of the water tower located there. So these are the prospecting sites that we'll be fighting over. Now, as for my little sister Shade, her plan pretty much is to capture as many of the ground level objectives as she possibly can. She's going going to try to capture the one that's in the middle of the prospecting site in the middle of the Alexander's department store, as well as the one that's located next to the ruins in the center of the battlefield. However, she does have a work cut out for her because next to that center portion of the battlefield, there are two tokens there for the layer of the beast, because that was the environmental effect we rolled for this turn, so she does have to worry about that. Her plan is to secure those two mining sites and then fight over the third one right there in the top upper left-hand corner. Now, as for my battle plan, I'm deploying on the far side of the table. I've pretty much broken up my gang into 4 fire teams is pretty much what I have. I basically have 2 fire teams in the upper left-hand corner as well as the upper right-hand corner. I have 1 in the center of my deployment area, and I also have my guy Scabs, who's infiltrated forward on the top of the water tower to mine that prospecting site. My plan is to actually control the upper levels by taking those 2 mining sites, and then hopefully I can grab the third one, which is located in the middle of the battlefield. Now, Shay does have her work cut out for her because she's fighting at a bit of a handicap because she has a couple of gang members who are in recovery, but she has gang tactics and I don't, so I do have my work cut out for me that way. So now that we're done with the battle plans, let's go and talk about bad zone environmental effects. So once again, we are fighting in a dome jungle, which means that we have 6 pieces of carnivorous plant terrain that's spread throughout the entirety of the battlefield. Each of these plants have +1 to their strength as well as their attack range increased by 3 inches. Also, they heal up every 1 point of damage during the end phase, and also if I have to shoot in this battlefield, I have to suffer an additional -1 hit penalty for all range attacks because it represents the fact that the dome is so heavily dense with carnivorous plants. And the kind of plant that we're using in this one is grapple weeds, which basically means these things move 2d6 inches directly towards the closest enemy unit. They also have flail attacks, which have a 6-inch range now because of the dome jungle effect, and those flail attacks will be at strength 4 with a weapon skill of 4 up. So we all do have our work cut out for us with the grapple weeds in this battle report. So battle plans over, let's go and talk about deployment. Starting off with Mercator Umbrus, this is Shade's Clanless Outcast gang. In the right in the front, we have 2 fighters named Jordani and Darko. They're both Hive Scum who are equipped with bolt guns, stub guns with photo goggles, as well as respirators. And right behind them is a guy named Sulako, who's an ammo jack. He's got mesh armor, a combat shotgun with salvo and shredder rounds, as well as a power sword. He's also got the munitioneer skill. In the center of Shay's deployment area, of course, is a mining site that she'll be prospecting. As you can see, we also have the character Runedog, who's a Hive Scum with twin stub guns. He's also got smoke grenades as well as photo goggles and a respirator. And finally, making up Shay's far left-hand side, we have 3 more fighters. In the back, that is Chopper. He's an Outcast champion. He's got the Mastermind archetype. He's got mesh armor as well as grenade launcher, frag, as well as crack grenades. He's also got a stub gun. He's also packing smoke grenades. He has a respirator as well as photo goggles, and he has the Overwatch skill. Now, right in front of him on the left-hand side, that is Soljas, who is a Hive Scum armed with an auto gun, stub gun, photo goggles, and respirator. And right next to him on the right-hand side is Moloko, who is a Hive Scum armed with a shotgun with solid and scatter shot, as well as a stub gun and a respirator. And that pretty much makes up Shade's deployment for this battle report. So moving on across the table for the Gung-Ho Guns, which is my House Escher Outcasts gang, I have a 3-man fire team deployed in the upper left-hand corner of the battlefield. In the back, that is Preston Garvey. He is an Outcast champion with the Gunslinger archetype. He's got mesh armor as well as a long rifle with an infrared sight. He's got a stub gun with dum-dum rounds as well as a fast shot skill. Next on the right-hand side, that character's name is One Shot Blonde. She's an Outcast Hive Scum. She's got flak armor as well as photo goggles. She's got a hot shot last gun as well as a stub gun. And right in front of them, that character's name is Deadhead Lee. Deadhead Lee's an Outcast Hive Scum with flak armor. He's got photo goggles as well as a wild bow. He's got stub gun as well as smoke grenades. And that pretty much makes my deployment here in the upper left-hand corner. So in the center of the battlefield, I have a 4-man fire team. In the back is Cal Jericho, the Dramatis Personae. He's also the leader of my gang. He's also a gunslinger archetype. He's got mesh armor. He's got 2 mastercrafted hotshot last pistols. He's got a dueling saber, filter plugs, as well as a strip kick, as well as photo goggles. He's also got the counterattack, gunslinger, inspirational, spring up, step aside, as well as commanding presence skill. And he's also got a 3-up ward save for his charmed life ability. Now next on the left-hand side, that is Krotos Hark, the bounty hunter special character. He's got an armored undersuit as well as furnace plates. He's got a stub cannon as well as a fighting knife. He's got the headbutt, inspirational, and munitioneer skill. Right in front of them is Zero, another Outcast Hive Scum. He's got flak armor, photo goggles, as well as a hotshot last gun, a stub gun. And next on the right hand side is Scalp Taker, another Outcast Hive Scum who's equipped exactly the same way. And in the right corner, I got another 3-man fire team. In the back is Sheikh Shabazz. He's an Outcast champion with a gunslinger upgrade, archetype, He's also got a mesh armor. He's also packing a long rifle with an infrared sight. He's got a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, as well as a fast shot skill. Next on the left-hand side, that is Mayday, another Outcast Hive Scum. She's got flak armor as well as photo goggles. She's got a hotshot last gun as a stub gun. And right in front of them is Crimson Wind, an Outcast Hive Scum. That character's got flak armor, photo goggles, a wild bow, stub gun, as well as smoke grenades. And that pretty much makes up my deployment for this one. And finally, on the top of the water tower, using the infiltrate special rule, is Scabs, my other Dramatis Personae. He's got a mesh armor with plasma gun, a stub gun with filter plugs, as well as photo goggles. He's also got the Clamber, Escape Artist, Infiltrate, as well as Lilo abilities. And that pretty much makes him up my deployment for this one. So deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both Shade and I roll off to see what our first round environmental effect will be. So we rolled up on the environmental effect. We got Layer of the Beast, which means 3 different Layer of the Beast tokens are spread throughout the battlefield, so we do have to contend with that, and this of course will be discarded on a 5-up during the end phase. Here's a close-up of the 2 Beast tokens right next to the ruins that's in the middle of the battlefield, as well as the other prospecting site on the ground floor. And here's the 3rd Beast counter right between the Foxhole as well as the water tower on my side of the tabletop as well. So with turn 1 over with, with our battle plans over with, deployment over with, as well as our bad zone environmental effects, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both Shade and I roll off for initiative to see which of us will have priority. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 1, and House Escher Outcasts get the initiative on this one, so I'll be going first, and for my first activation, I activate Scabs. Scabs does a double action in order to start mining the prospecting site. Unfortunate for me though, when I rolled my 2d6 to see what I end up getting, I got the something jumped up and bit me ability, which basically means I take a strength 2 hit. Luckily for me though, it didn't wound me, so it only pinned my character, but at the same time though, I don't get anything from that prospecting site. So moving on to Shade's activation, she then activates Runedog. Runedog does a double action in order to start looking through this prospecting site. Unfortunately for her though, she didn't find anything, but she does get a bonus additional 3d6 in order to roll to see if she finds anything and the next time that she does prospecting. So for my next activation, I then activate Crimson Wind. Crimson Wind does a double movement for his actions. He does his first set of movements to get directly to the ladder of the water tower, and the second action to climb the ladder all the way to the top floor next to that water tank. Meanwhile, Shay goes next to the group activation, activating Chopper as well as Soldiers. The 2 of them take basic actions to aim their weapons, and another basic action open fire with a crack grenade, as well as an auto rifle in the very first of the Beast Layer tokens in the middle of the battlefield. Chopper does manage to put 2 wounds directly on one of the Beast counters with his crack grenade. Unfortunately for her though, the other guy's Soldiers wasn't able to do anything about it, so because of that, that Beast token is still active. So for my next activation, I once again do a group activation with Sheik Shabazz, who then also group activates Mayday. Mayday actually starts off first by moving her first simple action move to the base of the water tower, and her second base a simple action to climb up the ladder to go directly to the top of the water tank. Meanwhile, Sheik Shabazz goes next. He once again does double movements directly towards the base of the water tower, and because of his distance from it, all he can do is just basically get to the ladder is all I can do. So I'll have to spend another action next turn for him to climb up that ladder. And I do apologize, I made a mistake earlier. It was Moloko that got activated. He opened fire with a solid slug shot with his shotgun and failed to hit or wound the Beast Layer. However, my little sister Shay then activates Soldiers. He goes next. He does a basic action to aim with his auto rifle and another basic action to open fire with it. Actually rolled 3 shots with his auto rifle, so that part was pretty cool. And with those 3 shots, he's able to put on the very last wound of the Beast Layer token, so because of that creature goes out of action, and also netting himself a bonus experience point. Meanwhile, for my next activation, I activate Preston Garvey. Does a group activation with One Shot Blonde. One Shot Blonde does a double action in order to move directly up the ramp, directly onto the very first layer. I then move Preston Garvey, his double actions, but the only thing he's able to do though is get to the base of it because he's got to climb up on his next turn. Just because I realize I gotta escape these grappled weeds, just because those carnivorous plants are absolutely terrifying. Meanwhile, Shade also activates Donnie. Donnie goes directly to the little walkway there and actually climbs up directly to the first level using double actions in order to do that. At the same time, I also do double activation, not double activation, I'm sorry. I do double movements again with Deadhead Lee. Deadhead Lee actually moves directly 10 inches to the right-hand side, next to that pillar, trying to get away from those carnivorous plants because I really don't want my guy to get attacked by those things. Shay then activates next and then ends up sending Sulaco, the ammo jack, to do exactly the same thing, doing double movements directly to the first layer of the catwalk. And then for my activation, I activate Zero. Zero does a simple movement to move up his maximum move allowance of 5 inches directly to the base of the water tower, and then I do another basic action for him to open fire with his hotshot last gun directly into Moloko, who's across the battlefield from him. Not only do I manage to hit him, I also manage to wound him as well, also putting a serious injury onto him, so because he goes crashing face first into the decking, and he is currently bleeding out. So for the rest of the battle, for the rest of this turn actually, this is actually, photos are taken after several activations just because all we did for the rest of the turn was just move our fighters. So the first thing I do, of course, I group activate Cal Jericho, who also activates Kratos Hark as well as Scalp Taker. Those Kratos Hark as well as Cal Jericho do double movements forward, so that way they move forward their maximum movement allowance. Meanwhile, Scalp Taker does a simple action to move forward, a basic action open fire with his last gun directly into Soldiers. Unfortunately though, I missed my shot, so nothing much really happens there. And lastly, Darko does a double movement to climb up directly to the first level of the walkway, so that way he can join up with Donnie as well as Sulaco. And that pretty much makes up the action phase for turn number 1. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. And during the end phase, you can see in this photo, those two carnivorous plants start moving forward directly towards Tugs, as well as towards Moloko, as well as towards Chopper. They do, of course, attack with their flank attacks, but luckily for Shade, though, both those attacks miss, so no harm, no foul there. Meanwhile, on the top of the battlefield, those creeping grappler weeds also move up directly towards both Preston Garvey as well as to Crimson Wind. Sorry, not Crimson Wind, to Deadhead Lee. Luckily for me, though, their attacks also miss, so I'm perfectly fine there. And another grapple weed also moves up directly towards Sheikh Shabazz, and they do manage to put a wound directly onto him, so because of that part was pretty rough. And of course, another grapple weed also attacks Scalp Taker. It managed to hit as well as wound him as well, and also managed to put a flesh wound directly onto him. So he's currently pinned, and he also has a flesh wound on him as well, which is pretty rough, all things considered. So that takes regularly at the end of turn number 1, so here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, all the grapple weeds have moved up forward in order to start engaging our fighters. So far, we've been pretty lucky by not taking any serious casualties. At the same time, Shade also passes her bottle test as well. So because of that, we go directly to the top of turn number 2. And the first thing we do is we roll for our environmental effects. So with that, for our bad zone environmental effects on this one, we roll Spore Clouds, which basically means that at the end of each of our activations, we do have to roll a d6. If we roll this one, we do have to consult a table to see exactly what kind of horrific thing is happening to our gang members, whether it's choke gas grenades, like a choke gas, or whether it's like a scare gas, or whatever the case may be. It also gets dispelled on a 4-up at the end phase. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and both Shade and I roll off for initiative to see which of us has priority. So because of that, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for House Escher Outcasts. So the first thing I do, of course, is I activate Scabs. I do a basic action to get Scabs back on his feet again, and another basic action for an open fire with his plasma gun, this time firing 2 shots of the rapid fire dice directly towards Donnie and Darko, which are across the table from him on that walkway because of the closest targets to him. So my first shot does manage to hit Darko. I do manage to put a wound on that guy, 2 wounds on that guy, at the same time put a serious injury on him as well. Unfortunately for Shade, though, she does fail her initiative test because that Darko goes crashing like a meteor from the top floor directly into the ground. But luckily for her, though, she does manage to not get a wound from that, so because of that, he's just currently laying on the asphalt and he's currently bleeding out. Meanwhile, because I only used 1 shot at him, I could then use another shot as well, which was within an inch, and I go after Donnie. So Donnie gets hit as well. Managed to put, I believe, 2 flesh wounds on him. So because of that, and I put a flesh wound and a serious injury on him. That's what I did. So because of that, he also said to take an initiative test. Unfortunately for Shade, she does fail an initiative test, so Donnie also goes crashing to the ground like a meteor. Unfortunately for Shade, he does suffer a flesh wound, so he's got 2 flesh wounds on him. He's also got a serious injury on him, which is really bad because even if he rolls a flesh wound, he only has toughness 3, which means he automatically goes out of action. So just like that, 2 more of Shade's fighters are incapacitated. So for Shade's next activation, she then in fact activates Runedog. Runedog does a double action in order to start looking through the mining prospecting site. Unfortunately for Shade, once again, she rolls up that plus d6 again. So because of that, nothing was actually found in that prospecting site. So for my next activation, I activate Crimson Wind. Crimson Wind does a simple action to move up forward, his normal moon allowance, and another basic action, open fire with his Wasteland Bow directly into Sulaco. Now, to be honest with you guys, I actually have a -2 to hit against with him, which means basically I have to roll up a 6 in order to do so. And when I rolled to see exactly what happened, I rolled a perfect 6. So just like that, the shot actually lands and also hits Sulaco. So I do manage to hit Sulaco. Unfortunately, though, I do not wound him, so because of that, he's perfectly fine. But he does have to take an initiative test because he's so close to the edge of the walkway, and that's where he fails. He fails his initiative test, and he goes crashing directly into the ground. He does take a hit as well as an injury. It does go past his armor save, but he ends up with a flesh wound. So he's 1 toughness less, but he still has a combat shotgun. He still has a power sword. The guy can move, the guy can fight, so he's still pretty much a threat. So with Shade's next activation, she does a group activation with Chopper, who also activates Soldiers. The first thing that she does, she takes a basic action aim with a grenade launcher and another basic action open fire frag grenade directly towards Zero because that's the closest target line of sight to her. Now, she does roll up. When she rolls, she does manage to roll a hit, but she also rolls an ammo check as well, so because of that, she will need to take an ammo check in order to reload that frag grenade. The frag grenade actually does manage to hit as well as manages to hit my character Zero. Luckily for me, though, Zero is all by himself, so no one else got caught in the blast template but him. Meanwhile, Tugs also does a double movement forward directly towards those ruins, heading directly to the center of the table, so that way you can start mining that prospecting site. Meanwhile, here's a close-up of Zero. So Zero does take a direct blast to the face with that frag grenade, but it didn't wound him. All it did is manage to hit him, and that was basically it. So he does get pushed to the left 1 inch, and he is currently pinned, which is really good, considering how bad that could have gone. So from there, I do activate Mayday. Mayday does a simple action, move up forward to normal move allowance, and another basic action, open fire with a hot shot last gun. Unfortunately, though, I do miss my shot because of that -1 to hit against from the Jungle Dome environmental effect. So because of that, her shot against Donnie was missed, so no harm, no foul there. So with that, Shade goes next. She then activates Sulaco. Sulaco does a simple action to get back on his feet again, and another simple action to move up directly next to Darko. She does this so that way when she rolls for injury roll during the recovery phase, she can reroll because he's rendering medical assistance to that character. And since Shade has no more fighters, the rest of the turn is dedicated to me, so I then activate Sheikh Shabazz. Sheikh Shabazz does a double movement. First one to climb up the ladder to directly the roof of the water tower, and another simple movement to go right behind Mayday, so that way he can start doing group activations in the next turn. And then once again, I do an activation one-shot Blanche. She does a double movement in order to climb to the very top level of the walkway, so that way she can make her way to the next prospecting site that's located up there. At the same time, I do a group activation with Preston Garvey as well as Deadhead Lee. The two of them actually get back, climbing up directly to the top of the first level of the walkway, so that way they don't worry about being attacked by grapple weeds. And for the rest of the turn, I move my fire team with Cal Jericho. Cal Jericho as well as Kratos Hark, they both actually move up forward directly towards the first ruin, so that way they can get access to that as well. At the same time, Scout Taper also gets back on his feet, does a simple movement forward directly towards that pillar, and then Zero also does a simple action to get back on his feet and does another simple action to walk next to that pillar as well. And that pretty much makes up the action phase for this one. So the action phase over with, we go directly towards the end phase. So during the end phase, unfortunately for my little sister Shade, things did not go out too well for her. First thing that ends up happening is the grapple weeds, of course, launched their attacks against Chopper. Wasn't able to do anything against him, so Chopper's perfectly fine. However, because Moloko is seriously injured, when the grappling wields charge directly into him, they do finish him off with a coup de grace. So because he does suffer a grievous injury, and he automatically goes out of action and into recovery. At the same time, because Soldiers is within range as well for the grapple attack, they manage to hit him with that strength 4 attack, put a serious injury on him as well. So he goes crashing face first into the ground, and he is currently bleeding out. Meanwhile, over here for Darko, unfortunately for my sister Shade, when she rolled the injury dice, she actually rolled an out of action result. So because of that, she decided to re-roll it again because Sulaco is rendering first aid, and when she rolled for the second one, she rolled an out of action result again. So because of that, when she rolled for the serious injury for this guy, she actually rolled up an out cold result. So because of that, Darko was perfectly fine, and he makes a full recovery no problem. As for Darko, same exact thing happens. Shade once again rolls an out of action result for him. So because of that, the reason why that was the case is because that grapple weed you can see there on the bottom of the screen, it moves up and actually finishes him off the coup de grace. So it puts him out of action automatically. And at the same time, she rolled an out cold result. So because of that, he is perfectly fine as well and makes a full recovery. And lastly, another grapple weed tries to move up and try to take on Scalp Taker once again. But luckily for me, though, the attack missed, so he is perfectly fine. But I gotta get those guys out of there because them being attacked by grapple weeds is no walk in the park. And as you see, ladies and gentlemen, that takes directly to the end of turn number 2. So here's our overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, Shade's forces are slowly being decimated in time by these grapple weeds. My forces are primarily located in the center of the battlefield as well as climbing to the top of the central walkway. And that pretty much does it for this turn. And unfortunately for Shade, because she's taken so many losses so far, she decides she just wants to cut her losses now before she endangers losing any more members of her gang. So because of that, she pretty much decides to bottle out voluntarily, using her gang tactic on her list victory, so that way she doesn't lose any reputation points for doing so. And that takes us directly to the end of the game. As you can see right here, this is pretty much what the battlefield looks like, with another victory for House Escher Outcasts. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, go directly to the post game because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, so first of all, we talk about Mercator Umbrus. So for injuries, Soldiers actually got captured. We actually rolled it for him. I got a +3 to capture because of the jail upgrade that I gave him my settlement. At the same time, I also get Kratos Hark as well. But because it's the last week of the development phase before downtime, he automatically makes a full recovery, so no harm, no foul, and he gets returned back to Mercator Umbrus because of that. However, though, I do get half his credits, so I do manage to score 45 credits from that, which is absolutely fantastic. Meanwhile, Moloko, he did suffer a grievous injury, but he makes a full recovery because once again, this is the very last battle report before for these two gangs anyways, before the downtime phase, so he automatically makes a full recovery, and both Donnie and Darko got out cold results, so they're perfectly fine. Now for advances on this one, Darko did level up to level 2 and he managed to get the specialist ability, so now he's a specialist in the gang, which means he can now equip special weapons. At the same time, for their settlement for the Boneyard as well, they do manage to raise up a bunch of different resources for themselves, and in the end what ended up happening is that Shay decided to build a minefield for her settlement, for that way for 10 power and 10 salvage, so that way she gets some more for her defense characteristics for her settlement. In the end, she ends up with 12 power, 10 sustenance, as well as 0 salvage in the end. Now, during the trading post, she does manage to get 10 credits from Hagar Freelord's Fixer skill, and at the same time managed to also drum up 60 credits from Hagar Freelord's Well-Connected special rule. At the same time, she also earned an additional 20 credits from her Lucky Score Tactic card that she was able to play, which gives her D6 times 10 credits. She managed to score 20 credits from that. Now, when combined with the 35 credits from her stash, as well as the 250 credits you get for entering downtime, she ended up with a grand total of 375 credits in total. With those 375 credits, she spent 215 of those to hire an ambot named the Shipbreaker, so now she has an ambot in her gang. And she also spent another 100 credits to purchase a plasma gun for Darko and place Darko's bolt gun directly into the stash. And then with the remaining 60 credits, she purchased flak armor for Tugs, Soldiers, Moloko, Runedog, Donnie, as well as Darko. Now for reputation, she earned 120 reputation from her settlement, and she also ignores the reputation penalty for bottling out because of her honorless victory tactics, which is perfectly fine, which brings up her new grand total reputation of 6. Her new crew record now is at 1 win and 3 losses, and her new gang rating now is at 1,710 points. Alright, so moving on to the Gung-Ho Guns. So for injuries, I actually suffered no injuries on this one, so I was perfectly fine. As for advancements, quite a bit of members of my gang actually advanced up, and the reason why is because since Shade left the battlefield, that meant all 4 prospecting sites were mine to use, which means I got to use 4 points of experience to put on any one of those fighters I want to. So because of this, Preston Garvey actually leveled up to level 2, earning +1 to his Ballista skill, so because that he also earns 20 credits to his value. Sheik Shabazz does exactly the same thing, leveling up to level 2, earning +1 to his Ballista skill, as well as 20 credits to his value. Now as for Scalp Taker as well as Crimson Wind, I rolled them up on the experience table because they both leveled up to level 2. They both got +1 willpower. It also increased their abilities to 20 credits in value as well. And lastly, for Deadhead Lee, when I rolled up for him, I rolled up a specialist on that one, so because that Deadhead Lee can now use special weapons from this point on. Now for my settlement of Martyr's End, I was able to generate 10 power, 10 sustenance, as well as a bunch of salvage. I was able to score up 69 points of salvage from that one, which gave me a grand total of 16 power, 16 sustenance, as well as 71 salvage. Now with all of my materials that I managed to drum up, basically I got 49 salvage from the mining sites. I decided to build a bullet hull for 15 points of sustenance as well as 10 salvage. I also spent 50 points of salvage to build walls and gates for my settlement, and because I was able to do that, I spent an additional 10 power as well as 10 salvage in order to build a vault, which means that my settlement now cannot be subject to the settlement raid characteristics. So I'm just like the kiddo that way. No one's attacking my settlement. So because of that, it gives me with a grand total of 6 power, 6 sustenance, as well as 1 salvage. Now from the trading post, I was able to score 300 credits from the scenario as well as 5 credits from my stash. I also got 50 credits from capturing from Tugs, so because I managed to get 50 credits from that, so that part was awesome. At the same time, because it's downtime, I also earned additional 250 credits from downtime, giving me a grand total of 605 credits that I could spend in total. Now unfortunately for me, I did lose Kratos Hark, which was really expensive because that guy cost me like 110 credits for that guy. The reason why I lost was because of the We'll Get Our Bit special rules. I rolled poorly on that once because he left, which was really sad. So because of that, what I decided to do was hire 2 more hired guns instead. I decided to hire Abralesta Rain Catalyst. She is the bounty hunter special character from House Catalyst who looks like a Harlequin armed with a sniper rifle from the Book of Peril. I got her for free due to the bullet hull territory that I have in my settlement, so I was able to recruit a hired gun for free. And because she could also hire her brother, Aramista de Catalyst, I managed to hire him, and because I do have a drinking hole, I only have to pay half as much, so I recruited him for 125 credits because of my drinking hole. And I was able to get those 2 bounty hunters because you could actually hire both of them as a pair if you decide to hire one of them, so I decided to do that as well. At the same time, I also spent 100 credits to purchase a plasma gun for Deadhead Lee, and I took his wild bow and smoke grenades and I placed them directly in the stash, and then purchased a $25 telescopic sight for Deadhead Lee as well, so that way he can get his short range bonuses for long range attacks. I then spent 40 credits to purchase mesh armor as well as an armored undersuit for Deadhead Lee as well, so that way he doesn't get killed easily. I then spent 100 credits to purchase armored undersuits for Cal Jericho, Scabs, Preston Garvey, as well as Sheik Shabazz. And with the rest of my money, I recruited 2 Outcast Hive Scum named Trixie as well as Mad Teddy. Now, both those characters are equipped with photo goggles, both those characters are equipped with flak armor, and both of them also have stub guns as well. I gave Trixie the hotshot last gun that was in my stash, and I gave Mad Teddy Deadhead Lee's old wild bow as well as smoke grenades. I then also purchased poison arrows and acid arrows for both Crimson Wind as well as Mad Teddy. Now for my reputation, I earned 1 point of reputation from my settlement, which gives me a grand total of 9 points of reputation in total. My new record now is at 4 wins and 0 losses, and my new gang rank now is at 2,600 points. So that's good for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.